October 1994, when you first had this meeting with Bishop Heenan, and July 1995, when there was a claim made, or you were advised of a claim by Mr. Owen, and there were legal proceedings, if not instituted, anticipated by the Sisters of Mercy. During that time, did you make any effort to contact Mr. Owen?
No, I did not.
During that time, did you offer any pastoral support to Mr. Owen?
No, I did not.
During that period of time, apart from your inquiries that you've noted in your notes of the 28th of October 1994 that I took you to yesterday, did you make any other inquiries?
No, I did not.
Do you agree that your focus during that time, through the inquiries you've noted on your note of the 28th of October 1994, was to substantiate in your own mind the veracity of the allegations?
I'm not sure. I don't remember what I was actually doing during that time.
So what part of the question are you not sure about?
I'm not sure what I was doing about investigating it. I can't remember clearly.
But you agree that at no stage during that period that I've referred you to, so between October 1994 and July 1995, did you contact Mr. Owen?
That's true.
And why was that?
Largely because we had no processes in place. We were very much in a phase of attempting to understand the issue and develop procedures.
So, yesterday I asked you about the protocols which were introduced in June 1994. You recall the document that was shown to you? Perhaps if we bring that up again, it's under tab 38. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think yesterday you said that you agreed with these protocols?
Yes, indeed.
And they would have been in place as of October 1994 when you received this information from Bishop Heenan? And did you have regard to these protocols in considering the complaint that had been made by David Owen?
They are about sexual abuse, and the bit I was dealing with was of physical abuse allegations.
But you understood that there was also allegations of sexual abuse made by David Owen in respect of a parish priest?
Yes.
And you understood that occurred while Mr. Owen was living at Neerkol?
Yes.
And you understood that the two were interrelated, if you like?
That became a dawning realisation. It was certainly not my realisation at the beginning of this.
So in your mind, did this protocol not apply to the allegations made by David Owen?
I didn't find it helping me to know what to do. There was also a police inquiry at the time, of course.
Yes. Did you understand, however, that Father Anderson was dead?
Oh, yes. Yes.
So there could be no police investigation in respect of that aspect of the allegations, could there?
There still was, I think. Am I wrong? I'm sorry. My understanding was that the police did look into that. I may be wrong. I'm sorry. I might have got mixed up with something else.
So can I ask you this? Why, looking back to how you thought about these allegations in 1994, leading into mid-1995, why did you not contact Mr. Owen?
Because I did not know how to proceed with these complaints.
Did you seek any advice in respect of how to proceed?
Yes, I was attempting to learn anywhere that I could learn about physical and sexual abuse, but it wasn't really all that easy.
Okay. Did you ask anyone what you should do during this period of almost a year or
Yes.
9 months?
In general discussions, yes.
And who did you ask that from?
Mainly other leaders.
And what advice did you receive?
Not much. We didn't have a procedure to refer to at that stage for what to do.
Did you need a procedure to understand that it may offer that a person such as David Owen would like some acknowledgement of his allegations?
I was conscious that we were dealing with something which was also a legal proceeding, and I did not know how to interact with that either.
But
It became a legal proceeding.
But in acknowledging the allegations, you would have understood that didn't compromise the Sisters of Mercy's position in respect of any anticipated civil proceeding, wouldn't you?
I don't believe I did understand that. I would act differently today, and do act differently today, but I did not have that understanding then. I felt quite lost in it all.
By the 28th of October 1994, you had made inquiries of other sisters who'd been present at Neerkol at the time David Owen was?
No, they were all dead.
But you'd made inquiries whether they were alive or dead, hadn't you?
Yes, I did.
And you made inquiries of other residents at Neerkol?
Yes, a couple.
And you'd made inquiries of written documents to work out the relevant dates?
Yes.
And in making those inquiries, you were looking to substantiate the veracity of the allegations, to your mind?
And to understand what the situation had been at that stage, yes.
And in that regard, did you consider contacting David Owen?
No, I did not.
And why not?
I didn't know how to deal with the situation.
How would you really assess the veracity of the allegations without contacting the person who was making them?
I'm not sure that I was attempting to determine the veracity of the allegations. I was attempting to learn about the situation. In doing that, I may have discovered.
And wouldn't, in learning about the situation, that would necessarily involve contacting the person making the allegations?
I didn't do that, and I'm sorry I didn't do that.
Now, I'm asking you why you didn't do that.
It didn't occur to me to do it.
And what were you hoping to learn in making those inquiries?
About the situation. I needed to know more about it. These events occurred before I was born.
And wouldn't the best person to contact to learn about the allegations be the person making the allegations?
That seems very reasonable, yes.
You accept, don't you, that between October 1991 and July 1995, you did not contact David Owen and acknowledge the allegations he'd made?
Yes.
The allegations of physical abuse that he alleged had been inflicted upon him by the Sisters of Mercy? Yes?
Yes.
But also the allegations of sexual abuse by a parish priest while he was a resident at Neerkol at a time when the Sisters of Mercy operated that orphanage. You didn't contact David Owen, you agree with that?
Yes.
And you didn't acknowledge the allegations that he had made?
Yes.
And do you accept in doing that, in failing to do that, in failing to contact Mr Owen, your response did not provide a compassionate response to
Yes,
Mr
I agree.
Owen? And that in failing to acknowledge his allegations before setting out to investigate or determine the veracity or otherwise of them, that response was not consistent with subsequent protocols that have been implemented by the Sisters of Mercy?
Yes, very much so.
And do you also accept that failure to acknowledge the allegations exacerbated the suffering and the pain felt by Mr. Owen.
Yes, I do agree. And I regret.
In January 1995, you also became aware of a complaint by AYQ.
Yes.
And you became aware of that complaint through your conversations with Bishop Heenan?
I was aware that he had received a complaint.
Yes. And Bishop Heenan made you aware of that?
Yes. Not in detail, but just that there had been a complaint.
And how that came about, you set out at paragraph 33 of your statement. We might just bring that up. You say there that you had a request in January 1995 for information relating to a family and their time at Neerkol, and also you drafted a note relating to the time AYQ and his 3 sisters had been at Neerkol?
Yes.
And that was in respect of a request from Bishop Heenan?
Yes.
Now, you understood at that time that that request related to sexual allegations that had been made against Father Anderson by AYQ?
Yes.
And you also understood that there were allegations of physical abuse made against the Sisters of Mercy by AYQ.
Not
correct?
at that stage. To tell you the truth, I'm uncertain. I didn't think I did at that time.
Perhaps if we scroll down, I don't want to mislead you, if we scroll down to paragraph 36. On the 7th of March, you received a letter, and the letter notified the Sisters of Mercy that AYQ intended to claim compensation for personal injury.
Yes.
And did you understand that the claim against the Sisters of Mercy related to allegations of physical abuse?
In March I did, yes, when I received that.
And it was in September 1995 that you received a copy of a summons in respect of that claim filed on behalf of AYQ. Is that correct? Now, as a result of those claims, you made some inquiries about AYQ's time at Neerkol?
Yes.
And that was in relation to whether any of the sisters named in the claim or referred to in the claim and the allegations of physical abuse were still alive?
Yes.
And that information was provided to the solicitors dealing with the civil claim?
Yes.
Now, at some stage, you were informed, by January 1996, you were informed that the Sisters of Mercy and the diocese defence to AYQ's claim had been successful in that the statute of limitations had not been extended. That's correct?
Yes.
And you supported, or you instructed, you supported the Sisters of Mercy's position that this claim should be defended, didn't you?
Yes, I did.
And as I understand that, you did so on the basis that in your mind there was no support for the claim made by AYQ.
That wasn't my position, no. My position was that I could not see how a court case could be helpful where everybody who was relevant to the inquiry except the complainant seemed, well, not everybody, but all of the people accused were deceased.
Was part and parcel of your reason for the position you took, namely that the claim should be defended, because you believed there was nothing to verify the claim?
I did not at that stage have anything which led me to verify the claim. Of physical abuse, yes, I could believe that perhaps there was a claim, but I still knew nothing about misdoing by Father Anderson.
But was that part of the reason, namely that you couldn't verify the claim of at least sexual abuse against Father Anderson, the reason why you took the position that this civil claim should be defended?
Perhaps part of the reason, but the main one was I couldn't see how a court case could be held when everybody was deceased who had been accused. I don't know, perhaps it could have been. I've no idea, really.
Now, there is a period of time, isn't there, between January 1995 and March 1995 when there are no civil or criminal proceedings on foot in respect of AYQ,
Yes.
when you were aware of the allegations.
Yes.
And during that time, did you make any effort to contact AYQ?
No, I did not.
Did you make any effort to acknowledge the allegations made by AYQ?
No, I did not.
And do you agree that in failing to contact AYQ and acknowledge the allegations or offer pastoral support to AYQ, the response you gave was not a compassionate response?
Yes, I do agree, and I regret that very much.
And do you also agree that such a response exacerbated the suffering and the pain felt by AYQ?
I am sure it did, and I'm sorry about that.
And do you also accept that such an approach was against the protocols as they existed then in respect of child sexual abuse, but also the protocols that were implemented later on?
Yes. Yes.
Now, by the end of 1995, you have been made aware of the book by AYC, is that correct? The allegations by AYQ and Mr. David Owen, and also some allegations of physical abuse by a person in Brisbane that you travelled to visit.
Yes.
So by this stage, by 4 persons at least, a picture has been painted of the living conditions at Neerkol, which suggested an environment of both physical and sexual abuse. Do you agree with that?
It's over many years. It's not really... It's difficult to place it all together.
But if you put those allegations all together, having received them between 1993 and 1995, would you agree that you had allegations of an environment at Neerkol where physical abuse was perpetuated by more than one nun on children at the orphanage?
Yes, there was a strong possibility of that, which I acknowledged.
And also, you had allegations of sexual abuse being inflicted on more than one child at the orphanage by parish priests.
Yes. 2 allegations against the same priest we had.
And you also had the story by AYC, the book by AYC, in which she alleged that at the age of 11 she became pregnant and suffered a miscarriage. Now, you told us yesterday that you hadn't read the book yourself.
No.
And that you'd asked someone to read it for you. Why did you take that approach? Why did you not read the book yourself?
I just didn't.
And did you understand from the person who had read the book who AYC had said caused her to get pregnant?
It doesn't say in the book.
Or in what circumstances she became pregnant?
That's not described either.
So that's your understanding from the person who read the book and then relayed the information to you. So by the end of 1995, you had allegations from four separate persons of abuse suffered at Neerkol. In April 1996, you also became aware of AYP and the fact that she had complained of sexual abuse. I'll just let you find the name. That she had complained of child sexual abuse by Father Durham.
Yes.
And her husband had contacted the Sisters of Mercy directly while you were away. Is that correct?
Yes.
And her husband then, at the sisters, you being absent, then went on to contact Bishop Heenan.
Yes, I think that's correct. Yes.
And you became aware of the complaint by AYP through your conversations with Bishop Heenan.
Yes.
And there was a discussion about the sexual abuse said to have been suffered by AYP at the hands of Father Durham. So you were aware of the general details of that, namely that AYP alleged she had been raped. As a result of being informed of those allegations, did you also become aware that on AYP's version of events, she said that she had complained of the rape to Sister Regis?
I don't believe I had a statement of her complaint, at least at that stage.
You were told by Bishop Heenan generally what was said to have occurred, according to AYP?
Yes, about Father Durham, I'm sorry, I just don't remember if I was told about any sister.
Sorry, I might have confused you. You were told of an allegation of rape by Father Durham on AYP.
Yes.
Were you also told that AYP said that after the rape, she told Sister Regis about what had happened?
I can't remember that.
Okay. After your conversation with Bishop Heenan about what was alleged by AYP, did you contact Sister Regis?
She was deceased. Oh, sorry. Sorry, this is Sister Frances Regis. I beg your pardon, there are two. Yes. Yes, I'm sorry, I did know about that, yes.
So you knew...
I was thinking of the wrong person.
Okay, sorry, perhaps I'll be clear. You were told by Bishop Heenan that AYP alleged she'd been raped by Father Durham, and after that rape, AYP had told Sister Regis about what had happened.
Yes.
And as a result...
Look, I'm sorry, it may be in my statement. Could you take me there, please?
Sure. So if we can bring up the statement at paragraphs 58 and 59. So you say in April 1996, AYP made a complaint of sexual abuse at Neerkol by Father Durham to Bishop Heenan. AYP's husband attempted to contact the Sisters of Mercy, but I was away and he contacted Bishop Heenan. You then spoke to Bishop Heenan about AYP's complaint. As a result of this discussion, I visited Sister Mary Frances Regis, as she was the sister named in AYP's complaint to Bishop Heenan. Now, what I'm asking you is, did you understand at that time that AYP had alleged that she told Sister Regis about what had happened?
I don't actually remember that. I did go to see her, so perhaps I did know that, but I still don't remember it clearly.
In any event, after receiving this complaint from AYP, you go and contact Sister Regis.
Yes, I did.
She was alive at that time?
Yes.
Albeit elderly?
Yes.
And you check the version of events that had been recounted to you by Bishop Heenan with Sister Regis. And she doesn't recall the events or the incident of which AYP complained.
She did.
And was that lack of memory or lack of recollection by her significant to you?
It was just inconclusive. If she had remembered it, I would have been on sure ground about following it up. I didn't understand that because she didn't remember it, that it definitely didn't happen.
So you didn't make that leap, if you like. You didn't assume because Sister Regis didn't recall it, it didn't happen.
No.
So you still allowed for the possibility that AYP was telling the truth?
Yes.
Now, we've heard evidence that in September 1996, Father Durham was charged with offences in respect of AYP. Did you know that at the time?
Did I know that he was charged?
Yes.
I don't actually remember that. It's likely that I would have known, but I can't remember it.
I'll just double check the date. It might have been later than that. It might have been 1997. But in any event, did you understand that Father Durham was charged with criminal offences in respect of AYP?
Well, eventually, yes.
But at that time?
I don't remember then, no.
No. So,
January 97.
Yes, I think Father Durham was arrested in September 96 and then charged in January or February 1997.
Yes.
At that time, so September 96 through to February 1997, were you aware that Father Durham had been charged in respect of AYP?
It's likely. At some stage I would have learned it.
Now, between the period of April 1996, when you became aware from Bishop Heenan that AYP had made these allegations against Father Durham, and September 1996, when he was charged, or not charged, when he was arrested, did you make any effort to contact AYP?
Her husband used to ring regularly. I can't tell you how many times in that period.
And
I'm sorry, I didn't mean by that to infer that it was every day or something like that, just simply that he did ring constantly.
And did you speak with her husband?
I did on some occasions. He told me he was a solicitor at one stage.
And did you have discussions with her husband about the allegations?
Yes, to the extent that it was possible to.
And what was the nature of those discussions?
Mainly he was expressing anger and wanting some form of compensation. All I can remember.
Did you at any stage contact AYP directly?
Yes, I did, but not until later. She lived at a great distance, and it was early in 97 that I eventually visited her, I think. It is in the statement somewhere.
Right. But during the period after she first made these allegations, you didn't contact her. Is that your evidence?
I didn't contact her that I remember.
And can you now recall why you didn't contact her?
No, I can't really.
Did you acknowledge her allegations to her in any other way?
Only by phone.
I'm sorry?
Only by phone.
When did you find
To
her?
her husband, yes. They knew that we had received the allegation, yes.
But did you acknowledge it to her?
No.
Did you offer her any pastoral support on behalf of the Sisters of Mercy?
I did offer to visit, but I can't remember when exactly that offer was made, but I do know that I actually ended up... There was discussion about whether I would visit or whether our pastoral care person would visit. In the end, it was I was the one who did visit.
Was that much later in the piece, though?
It's early February, 97.
That's 10 months after you received the allegations.
Yes.
Did you think that it might be important to contact her directly before then?
It wasn't particularly easy to do, but I don't know at what stage I actually made the offer to visit, but it wasn't back in April, I don't think.
No. Given that the allegations related to a priest who was in the Neerkol parish, did you consider it your responsibility to offer pastoral care, or did you consider it the diocese's responsibility?
I would have expected the diocese to take some responsibility, but we have never walked away from the fact that if children were hurt in our care, it was also our responsibility.
Well, bearing that in mind, why is it that you didn't make contact with her directly until early 1997?
Most of the time about this period, we were attempting to learn a great deal more about both physical and sexual abuse. We did not have an in-depth understanding of the issue, and we employed a person to really help us learn a lot more about it. I was well aware that if we couldn't we needed a position that the congregation could endorse, not just that one person could take, and so we did put a lot of energy at this time into learning about sexual and physical abuse and its impact on people.
By April 1996, your protocols in respect of responding to child sexual abuse had been in play for almost 2 years, isn't that right?
Yes.
And did you have regard to those protocols in considering how to respond to AYB's complaint?
The complaint was not directly to me, but second-hand to me.
Well, her husband had rung the Sisters of Mercy first directly, hadn't they?
Yes, he had.
So you had received a complaint on behalf of a former resident?
Yes, we did not have it in writing, as I remember.
Is that of
true.
significance, whether it's in writing or not?
Well, we needed to know what we were being asked to do about it, yes.
Well, wouldn't a good way to find that out be to contact AYP?
Yes, and these are the ways in which we did go. We found it very difficult, however, to find the protocols, the procedures, the whole scheme that we ought to use.
But Sister Loch, as of April 1996, you already had a set of protocols in place in terms of responding to child sexual abuse allegations, didn't you?
But I did not know what to do.
Is that yes? There were
Yes.
protocols in place?
Yes.
Yes. And
Sexual abuse, yes.
yes, and these were allegations of sexual abuse, weren't they? Made by AYP.
Yes.
And they were allegations that were brought directly to the Sisters of Mercy's attention, yes?
Yes.
Right. And after you received those allegations, first through a phone call or missed phone call by her husband, AYP's husband, and secondly through your discussions with Bishop Heenan, did you have regard to your own protocols in deciding how to respond to the allegations?
Not consciously, I don't think.
And why not?
I can't tell you that. I'm sorry. I don't know.
And the fact that the Diocese of Rockhampton might have also been responding, that wouldn't preclude you from making contact with AYP.
That certainly is true, and that's the way we developed things.
And do you agree that in failing to acknowledge with her directly her allegations, your response to her was at that time inadequate?
At that time, yes.
And do you also acknowledge that in failing to acknowledge directly with her the allegations, you did not follow the protocols as set out in the June document, June 1994 document?
Yes.
And do you accept that in failing to ring her directly and speak with her directly and offer her any sort of pastoral support you could, your response at that time was not a compassionate one?
Yes. I could have done better.
And do you also acknowledge that such a response exacerbates the suffering and the difficulties faced by victims of child
Yes, I
sexual
do.
abuse? On the 13th of September 1996, we've heard evidence that there was a ministerial statement by Mr Kevin Lingard presented in Parliament. And you recall that evidence?
I do.
And do you also recall the circumstances around which that statement was released?
It was a ministerial statement.
Yes. At that time that ministerial statement was released, you were aware of, firstly, the book by AYC, is that right? The allegations by David Owens?
Yes.
The allegations by AYQ?
Yes.
The allegations by AYP?
Yes.
Were you also aware of allegations made by AYB? And
No, I was not.
so had Bishop Heenan discussed with you AYB and her allegations against Father Durham?
No.
Had you at that stage been made aware of allegations against Mr Kevin Baker? I'm asking about when that ministerial statement was released, so September 1996.
I had heard rumours, I think. I did not have any allegations.
Where had you heard those rumours?
I can't recall now, but it must have been somewhere in the context of some of this. I think by then, I'm not absolutely certain on that point.
After the ministerial statement was released, you issued a response to that statement, didn't you?
I did.
And if I could ask that the document behind tab 71 be brought up. And if we just scroll down to page 2. Okay, now this, on the second page, on the first part of that page is the ministerial statement, and the second part of the page is the response provided by you on the 14th of September 1996, is the date, or perhaps it's the 13th of September 1996. When did you issue that response? Was it the 13th or the 14th?
I'm not sure.
Okay. But shortly after the ministerial statement was produced?
Yes.
And have you had an opportunity to look at that response?
Yes.
There's two parts of it that I want to ask you some questions about. The first is, you say in the first paragraph, with respect to what has happened, I have to consider it astounding and dismaying that such allegations can be made in the Parliament of Queensland without any form of notification to our congregation or the diocese, and of course without any effort having been made to substantiate the allegations. We heard of the statement when I responded to a phone call from a reporter from the Courier Mail who had phoned this office at about 11 a.m. So there is two parts to your first paragraph. Firstly, that you were astounded and dismayed that you weren't informed of the statement that was to be read. And secondly, that there was no effort to substantiate the allegations. Is that correct? And was that how you felt at the time?
Yes.
Why did you think there should be a need to substantiate allegations prior to a ministerial statement that such allegations existed?
I don't understand to this day why a ministerial statement was an appropriate way to deal with 6 out of 300 phone calls to the Minister's office being about Neerkol.
So it was the naming of Neerkol that caused you dismay, was it?
Yes.
But why did you say or emphasise that the statement had been made without any effort to substantiate the allegations?
Because
Why did that cause you
that was my
concern?
understanding.
Why did it cause you concern, though? Why raise it in your response?
Because it was a damaging allegation which had not been substantiated in any way.
But it was being raised as an allegation. It wasn't being raised as a fact, was it? Or a conclusion?
It sounded very much like one.
Well, if you look at the ministerial statement, which is alongside it, it says to date 6 calls have been received from these former residents. Further allegations continue to be received about abuse to both male and female children. Callers to the hotline allege a pattern of incidents of physical and in some cases sexual abuse by the priests and nuns at the orphanage. It refers to allegations, doesn't it?
It does.
It doesn't refer to any concluded view in respect of those allegations.
Yes.
And do you agree that the point of raising those allegations is to ventilate and bring out other people who might also have allegations of physical or sexual abuse to tell about?
You would have to ask Mr. Lingard, I'm sorry.
So my question, though, to you, Sister Loch, is why did you think that it was necessary to substantiate the allegations before raising them in Parliament?
I did think so.
And my question is why?
I don't believe that was an appropriate way to approach the matter.
Well, can I ask you this? Your approach in respect of the allegations that had been brought to your attention, in respect of all those allegations, was first to make inquiries as to whether they could be verified in some way, wasn't it?
Yes.
And in doing so, you didn't contact any of those persons directly, did you?
No, we didn't at that stage. We did learn that, to do that.
And in doing so, did you take the view that first there was a need to substantiate or verify the allegations before, secondly, acknowledging the allegations? Was that your view at the time?
Yes.
And do you accept that that's a flawed approach?
My approach was flawed. Yes.
But do you accept the approach I've described to you, namely that you need to substantiate or verify the allegations before acknowledging the allegations is a flawed approach? Do you accept that now?
I'll accept it in this instance. Whether I accept it in every instance, I'm really not sure. I'd have to think hard about that.
Well, doesn't an acknowledgement of the allegations, isn't that important from an alleged victim's point of view? Namely that they're seen or they feel to be heard and seen and their allegations are received?
Yes.
And you acknowledge that's a significant and important part of any institution's response to allegations?
Yes.
And the approach that you took in respect to the 5 persons that I've referred you to, you accept that that didn't implement such an approach. You didn't acknowledge their allegations, did you? At that time, when you received them?
I'm sorry, 5. Well, okay, doesn't matter about the number, yes.
Well, AYC, AYQ, AYD, AYP, sorry, 4, and David Owen, 5.
The AYD wasn't part of this.
Sorry.
Look, okay, I won't dispute the numbers, but yes.
The AYC,
Yes.
AYQ,
Yes.
David Owen,
Yes.
AYP,
Yes.
so 4. Sorry, my mistake, 4. You didn't acknowledge any of their allegations directly to them.
Not at that stage.
So do you accept in your response to the allegations that were made in Parliament, as seen in this statement, do you accept that the reference to a failure on the part of Mr Lingard to substantiate the allegations was a flawed response? Do you accept the reasoning behind that as flawed?
I'm sorry, I don't think I'm getting...
No, it's my fault. Let me put it more clearly for you. Looking at paragraph 1 of your response,
Yes.
perhaps if we scroll down to it,
It's across, I think.
or across, and then down, no, up. Okay. Do you see that it says, I've considered it astounding and dismaying that such allegations can be made in the Parliament of Queensland without any form of notification? That's the first part of your complaint. But secondly, without any effort having been made to substantiate the allegations.
Yes.
Do you accept that your response to the ministerial statement, where you criticise the Member of Parliament for publicising the allegations without verifying them, is a flawed approach?
This was a very public statement. In the eyes of the public, this was a statement that these things had all happened.
Well, no, it
because
wasn't.
that's what came through in the papers.
Well, but that's not what was said, was it? It doesn't refer
It
to...
is what was heard by people.
it was never put as a concluded view, was it?
No, which makes you wonder why it was said at all.
Well, do you accept the point of saying this was to raise the fact these allegations had been made so that other people may avail themselves of the opportunity to come forward and report their allegations?
I believe that was Mr Lingard's statement, yes.
And don't you think that's a valid approach?
I don't know.
Well, what don't you know?
I said I don't know.
You don't
Oh,
know.
sorry. I don't know.
You don't think that's a valid approach?
No.
So do you think it's a good thing that...
Sorry.
Let me finish the
Beg your
question
pardon.
if I could. Do you think it's a good thing that Mr Lingard, releasing this ministerial statement, caused numerous former residents of Neerkol to come forward and let the authorities know of allegations that had occurred at Neerkol?
I have no objection at all, either to the hotline or to wishing people to come forward. I think that was a good thing to do. The sensationalism of this is what I disagree with.
But would you agree that in this statement issued or given by the Minister in Parliament, there was nothing sensational about it, was there?
There had been no allegation that I had heard of sexual abuse by a sister, yes, and that was certainly sensationalised.
But it's not what you had heard, it's what had been reported or come to the attention of Mr Lingard, wasn't it, that dictated this ministerial statement?
Yes.
And doesn't the Minister simply say, to date, 6 calls have been received from former residents of the Child Sexual Abuse Hotline within my department? So he specifies the number of calls, and he says that further allegations continue to be received. They allege incidents of physical and, in some cases, sexual abuse by priests and nuns. Do you say that's a sensational statement?
Yes.
What's sensational about that?
It was the first I'd heard of that.
Well, it wasn't, was it, Sister Loch?
Of the sexual abuse by sisters, yes, it was.
But you had heard enough about the...
I had 4, yes.
Right. But those 4 related to sexual abuse by a priest, 2 priests, physical abuse by sisters. So the only aspect of this that you hadn't heard was sexual abuse by the nuns. That statement, there was an allegation of sexual abuse, allegations of sexual abuse by nuns. Do you say that's sensational?
Certainly treated as such, yes.
That's a different issue. Was the statement sensational?
I think it was.
And can you explain for us what's sensational about raising those allegations in Parliament and establishing a hotline in respect to them?
We were inundated with calls from the media. I think that indicates sensational.
Well, that's a response by the media. That's not the statement that was made, was it? In any event, do you consider it a positive thing that this statement caused former residents of the orphanage to report their allegations?
Yes, I do.
And you agree now that there was no need for the government or anyone else to substantiate the allegations before raising them?
I do.
Now, I want to ask you about the second part of your response. You say at the penultimate paragraph, over the past 3 or 4 years, some few allegations have been made about Neerkol. At this stage, none have been verified or substantiated. All are being investigated to the best of our ability. Do you see that? Do you say that's an accurate statement?
It seemed so to me at the time.
What about now?
We worked out ways to address these things which are in more detail, and we were well on the way to beginning to do that at that time.
As of September 1996, you hadn't spoken to AYP, had you, about her allegation?
No.
At that stage, you hadn't spoken to AYQ about his allegation?
No.
And you hadn't spoken to Mr Owen about his allegations, had you?
No.
And you hadn't spoken to AYC about her allegations?
No.
So you say here that at this stage none have been verified or substantiated.
Yes.
How did you expect those allegations to be verified or substantiated without ever having spoken to any of the alleged victims?
It was my understanding that the police were looking at least 2 of those 4, perhaps 3.
Well, that's certainly true about AYP, but in respect of Mr Owen, you understood that the alleged perpetrators were dead, didn't you?
Yes.
So how could that ever be substantiated or verified without, in the absence of speaking to Mr Owen?
I'll accept that.
And in respect of AYQ, did you also understand that the sexual allegations were against Father Anderson, who was also dead?
Yes.
So how could those allegations ever be substantiated or verified?
It's still my understanding there was a police investigation. Perhaps I'm wrong about that.
A bit difficult when someone's dead.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. So do you say now that that was an appropriate statement, that over the past 3 or 4 years, some few allegations have been made about Neerkol. At this stage, none have been verified or substantiated?
In hindsight, we know of many more, so no.
Do you think it's necessary to say in the response, none have been verified or substantiated?
Necessary, no.
You also send a letter on the 15th of September 1996 to the Sisters of Mercy in your capacity as congregational leader.
Yes.
And that also forms part of the documents under Tender Bundle 71. I just want to take you to 3 aspects of this letter. You refer to your response in the first paragraph to the Minister, and then you give a fax number for the sisters to express, if they wish, their disappointment in his actions. And you advise the sisters to not claim that it is impossible that abuse occurred for the very real reason that we simply cannot know. But it is in order to refer to the dedicated hard work of so many of our sisters over the years. Was that your position at the time, that you couldn't exclude that the allegations made by any of these people were in fact true?
That's right.
So, again I ask you, why was it sensational to record those allegations or to refer to those allegations in a ministerial statement?
I only say that it seemed sensational to me at the time.
Okay. Then you go on in the next paragraph to say, the readings for this Sunday a huge challenge, as no doubt some of you also did. Yet forgiveness is what is demanded of all concerned. If we or others have done wrong, we must ask pardon, and we deserve to be forgiven only to the extent that we are ready to forgive those who wrong us. Our present experience is, in my view, one such wrong. It is possible that false allegations have been or will be made, and this will be a further wrong. Can I just pause there and ask you this? What is the wrong that you refer to in the second statement, the second sentence? And I'll read it again to you. If we or others have done wrong, we must ask pardon, and we deserve to be given only to the extent that we are ready to forgive those who wrong us. Our present experience, in my view, one such wrong. What is the wrong that you're referring to there?
Kevin Lingard's statement to Parliament.
You're not referring there to the experiences of past residents of the orphanage who have allegedly been physically or sexually abused, are you?
No, I'm not.
You're referring to the wrong that you perceive has been inflicted on your congregation.
Yes. But I'm making the point that we have to be ready to forgive people who wrong us. And if there is a situation in which we have done wrong, we must ask pardon. But we can only expect forgiveness to the extent that we're ready to forgive. That's the point I'm making.
Right, let's go on to the next sentence. It is possible that false allegations have been or will be made, and this will be a further wrong. Again, is this a further wrong to your congregation?
Yes, it's another example of if we wish to be forgiven, we must be ready to forgive anyone who hurts us.
You refer to some conference or a seminar you organised with Dr. Grant.
Yes.
You speak of how ironic it is that that was being organised at the same time these allegations came out or were referred to in Parliament. And then you say, in the circumstances, I can only urge you even more strongly to attend. Dr. Grant works with victims of trauma and abuse. He spoke at the ACLRI conference and asked the question, are you grateful to those who are bringing the allegations forward? I did not take many seconds to establish that I had a long way to go before I could truly lay claim to such an attitude. His point was that the church, as church, has offended. We can never truly be the church of Jesus until we have rejected and been cleansed of our sinfulness. You speak there of the length you have to go before you reach that position.
Yes, I did.
And that's notwithstanding the fact that you have received and considered allegations from 4 people separately leading up to this period.
Yes, and I still had a long way to go.
So in this paragraph, you have referred, can I suggest solely, to the wrongs that you perceive were being inflicted on your congregation, the Sisters of Mercy.
In that paragraph, yes.
By the allegations being raised in Parliament and by former residents.
Yes.
Then you say in the next paragraph, it is very likely that the innocent have suffered and will continue to suffer in the process. Who are you referring to there?
If any child had suffered abuse of any type, that's an innocent suffering.
Is that who you're referring to?
Yes.
Or are you referring to people you perceived are wrongly accused?
I think sometimes that happens too, but in that instance I was referring to the fact that if a child has suffered, that is a serious matter and it can never be deserved.
So is the innocent the abused children of Neerkol?
Yes, or anywhere.
Because you don't refer to them directly there, do you?
Well, that seminar that was arranged was all about our learning much more about both physical and sexual abuse and its impact on people. So in the total context, yes.
You don't acknowledge in this response, in this letter to the sisters, the good that can come from the ministerial statement and the allegations being brought out in the open, do you?
Not specifically, no. I didn't actually feel that way about it at the time.
That's correct, isn't it? You didn't feel that this was a positive thing.
Yes, that's what I'm referring to in the paragraph above.
And did you see it as something that would provide challenges for the Sisters of Mercy?
Yes, indeed.
And may have the potential to damage the reputation of the Sisters of Mercy?
Well, it did, but that wasn't the chief consideration.
Can I suggest to you that that was the focus of your response at that time, as in September 1996?
You may suggest it, but it wasn't.
What was the focus of your response?
I felt quite dismayed by what was happening. I knew that together we had to address the situation, we had to find a way forward, and we had to address any wrong that had been done by us.
There was nothing in this response, I suggest, either by way of the response that was released to the media or your response to the sisters, which acknowledged the difficulty that alleged victims of child sexual abuse have in coming forward with allegations, is there?
No, that's true.
There was nothing in this response which acknowledged an appreciation of the good that could come from former residents of the orphanage coming forward.
I refer to the fact that this was what Dr. Grant was saying and that I was trying to come to grips with that, and I felt that we had to work with that, yes.
You don't portray it in this response as a positive thing, do you?
Well, certainly not a negative thing.
You don't portray the fact that former residents have come forward, often for the first time, to talk of child sexual abuse that they suffered as a positive thing, do you?
No, I refer to others telling me that and me trying to cope with that, yes.
Can I suggest that your focus is on the difficulties that will be placed on the Sisters of Mercy by such an event?
Oh, yes, there was a difficulty, certainly.
And that was your focus at that time?
Well, it was only a focus because we needed to respond to the people who may have been offended against or who were offended against.
Prior to this ministerial statement being released, you had organised to meet or a seminar with Dr. Grant, and that was in fact held on the 3rd, 4th and 5th of November 1996.
Yes, that's right.
And you attended that seminar? And did a large number of your congregation,
yes,
the sisters, attend that seminar?
Yes.
Prior to 1996, what other training had the Sisters of Mercy provided in respect to responding to and handling child sexual abuse?
We hadn't.
Well, in the course of accepting the protocols of June 1994, had that caused you to organise any seminars or training for the sisters?
No.
And leading up to this seminar in November 1996 and the earlier seminar that you attended by Dr. Grant, had you received any other type of training?
No.
At that time, you were the leader of your congregation?
Yes.
The leader of the Sisters of Mercy?
Yes.
Do you think that's appropriate for the leader of the Sisters of Mercy to have so little training in responding to and identifying child sexual abuse?
It would have been very helpful to have more. It was not all that easy to access.
Well, there were experts available,
I found one, yes.
but you were involved in producing the protocols of 1994?
Only to the point of accepting them. I wasn't one of the people designing them.
Did you contact any of the Special Issues Resource Group who developed those protocols?
I had been talking with someone that I think was on that resource group. Yes.
The Sisters of Mercy, while you were the leader from early 1991 onwards, had a lot to do with children in their capacity as teachers,
Yes.
as persons who cared for children
Yes.
within their congregations.
Yes. Yes.
Wasn't that an integral part of your organisation, dealing with children?
Yes.
And yet, you as the leader of the congregation say that you had no training or advice on child sexual abuse issues right up until 1996. Is that your evidence?
I think you'll find that that's fairly common. Yes, it was true.
But is that your evidence?
Yes, it is.
And right up until 1996, you didn't organise any such training or seminars for your congregation?
No, I did not.
And do you consider that an appropriate approach on behalf of the Sisters of Mercy?
I wish I had done it sooner.
And do you accept that affected your capacity to respond to the allegations of former Neerkol residents leading up to 1997?
Yes, I agree.
That it undermined and adversely affected your capacity to do so?
Yes, I agree.
Now, can I just ask you about your conference or your seminar with Dr. Grant? And before I do, I'd like to produce to you a document which is not in the tender bundle, CTJH 202 05002 0048 redacted. You can bring that up, and I might provide you with a hard copy. Are these your notes, Sister Loch?
They are.
And this relates to a session that was had on the Monday.
Yes.
So it's dated the 4th of November 1996. And perhaps if we turn it over to, we'll scroll down to the second page. We'll scroll down to the second page. These are sins that arise.
Yes.
And these situations have been taken from actual allegations that have been brought to your attention. Is that correct?
Mm.
So, situation one, that relates to the woman in Brisbane that you travelled to meet who had made allegations of physical abuse.
It is.
And then situation two, that's the book published by AYC, about which you were informed through the media.
Yes.
And you say in that the book does not have much credibility.
That was my view.
Was that still your view in November 1996?
Yes, it was.
So even after the numerous allegations that were raised through the ministerial statement and the child abuse hotline and the Children's Commissioner, that was still your view?
Yes, it was.
And why was that? Why did you still hold that view?
Probably because of some of the claims made in it. I can't remember exactly.
I might return to that in a moment, but paragraph 3 relates to AYQ.
Yes.
And then paragraph 4 relates to Mr. Owen.
Yes, it does.
And you say in respect of this, in the second last paragraph, that the matter was resolved, the matter was referred to your solicitors, and in November 1995, and to my knowledge, no charges have been laid. So there's talk about the civil proceedings, and then at the end it says, and to my knowledge, no charges have been laid.
That's right.
Did you understand that was because the priest was dead?
Probably a silly statement when I think of it now, but I'm not altogether sure that I knew that I did say, is that the one where I thought the police were investigating something?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
So at least as of November 1996, you were aware that there were no charges that had been laid in respect of Mr. Owen, or the allegations
Yes.
made by Mr. Owen.
Yes.
And by saying this as part of the scenario, were you trying to say, correct me if I'm wrong, but is this a suggestion that there was in some way a comment on the truthfulness of the allegations, or were you just laying that?
It wasn't that. No, it was just simply that I was attempting to give this visiting expert. I wanted to use his advice as well as possible, so I was simply laying out what were the issues that had presented to us at that time.
Because you don't say the priest is dead, do you?
I don't in that one, no. I did in the one above.
And that's the same priest.
Yes, it is.
Okay. And then in paragraph 5, you refer to AYP's situation.
Yes.
And you say there that Bishop Heenan requested that Father Black deal with it on behalf of both the diocese and the congregation.
Yes.
Again, you accept that there was nothing to preclude you from personally contacting AYP, was there?
No.
Particularly given her husband had contacted you directly, or the sisters.
Yes, that's true.
And then if we turn over, we'll scroll, I think it's up actually. We see paragraph 6. You refer to a letter received a few days from Father Spence, which gives us details of his interview with a boy who came to see Father. The boy was at Neerkol, 1939 to 1953. No seal abuse, idea of a dungeon ridiculous. However, recounted episodes of cruelty that trouble him now. Since the recent publicity, the memories come back of grave physical and mental ill treatment to the extent that he has nightly nightmares. Ambivalent memories of some sisters. I rang Father Spence, said we will pay for any counselling this person might accept, meet with him, bring him up, whatever was advised and agreed to. The offer will be made, other will follow-up action. To whom are you referring to there?
I don't know. I didn't ever learn the name of that person.
Do you have any independent recollection who you're speaking about?
Only of having received that letter from Father Jim Spence.
Did you
Nothing
ever know
else.
who it was?
No, he didn't tell me, I don't think, who it was.
Did you make any inquiries of him?
I would have assumed that he would tell me if the boy had wanted me to know.
And then the last, paragraph 7 is, there was a letter in the paper last week from a boy who was at Neerkol in the 50s. Short and bitter, basically says Neerkol was a hellhole of physical and sexual abuse. This person has not contacted anyone that I know of, but his name is given. What action should we take? Do you know who that was?
I don't remember now. I think at the time, well, I really don't remember whether he had his own name in the paper or not. No, I don't.
And at paragraph 8, which is at the top of the former page, you refer to several rumours of a boy who grew up at Neerkol and then stayed on as a member of staff, forcing sexual activity on younger boys. To date, I have listened to the rumours but taken no further action. Should I? What can be done? Is that a reference to Mr. Baker?
I presume it was. I haven't used the name there, but I presume it was.
And in response to these scenarios, did you in fact receive advice that you needed to be proactive in your approach to them?
We were already attempting to be, but yes, the advice certainly helped us to do that.
And did you also receive advice from Dr. Grant that it was important to acknowledge the allegations?
Yes, indeed.
And that it wasn't to the point whether you could independently support the allegations. The important part at the outset was to acknowledge the allegations?
I can't remember that specific point, but I'm quite sure it was part of what he gave as advice, yes.
And then from there, there were suggested protocols that would be put in place and followed.
Yes.
And they became the subject of further advice and discussion before a draft set of protocols were released the following year.
Yes, it took us a while to just get things together.
I'll come to those in a moment, but before I leave this meeting or seminar, during the course, during the course of this seminar, did you have discussions with a former supervisor of the home at Neerkol, Sister Cordelia?
At some stage I spoke with Cordelia. I can't remember about it being connected with this seminar.
And
She would not have been present, I don't think.
you don't think she was present?
She was quite elderly. I doubt very much if she'd have been able.
Perhaps I've incorrectly connected the two, but shortly after this seminar, you had discussions with Sister Cordelia about the Neerkol Orphanage,
Yes.
didn't you?
Yes.
And if perhaps we can bring up the document under tab 84. This is a note made by you,
Yes, it is.
and it's dated the 13th of November 1996.
Yes.
And that's about a week after the seminar with Dr. Grant concluded.
Yes.
And you say that you went to see Sister Cordelia and that she was a former supervisor of the house at Neerkol.
Former superior. Yes.
Sorry, is that an incorrect?
Superior was our terminology. It meant that effectively, yes, she was the superior, the supervisor, I think, or whatever the term.
Oh, I see. I've misstated. So she was a former superior of the house. She told me she remembers a boy coming to try to tell me about Kevin doing things he should not, and his father wanted something done about it. Cordelia was not at all specific and very vague on name, years, etc., but she described an older boy who was on staff caring and said he once worked in the railway, married to a nice girl. It is almost certainly Kevin Baker she's describing. She went on to say that she truly believed Kevin wouldn't do anything like that and dismissed the boy's complaint. The boy's father came to take him away sometime after this. Cordelia does not remember the father making further complaint. Did you try and find out who she was talking about?
It was too vague. I didn't even have years or anything that would help me to identify.
And what did you do with that information?
I did nothing with it in the years or anything that would help me to identify.
In your note, recollection. I have not passed this information to police at this stage. I have reason to believe one or more boys have raised complaints against Kevin Baker, and the recollection. I have not passed this information to police at this stage. I have investigating Mr. Baker.
That was my understanding, yes. They had not been to, I had no direct notification of that, but yes, I had heard that.
And did you become aware later on that Mr. Baker was in fact charged with criminal offences against former residents?
Yes.
Numerous former residents?
Yes, that's not around about this period though, is it?
No, it's not in 1996.
Yes.
But you were aware that subsequent to...
It's not around about this period though, is it?
No, it's not in 1996.
Yes.
So more than one complainant, indeed 12.
Yes.
Did you understand that?
I don't know that I knew the detail, but yes, I knew it was serious and that there were many people who had complained.
Indeed 12.
Yes.
Did you understand that?
I don't know that I knew the detail, but yes, I knew it was serious and that there were many people who had complained. Mm.
And those criminal proceedings received a fair amount of media attention?
Mm.
You agree with that?
Yes. Mm.
And during those criminal proceedings, did you pass this information on to the police?
No, I didn't.
You say, I do not believe the above is likely to be relevant?
Well, because of its vagueness, I couldn't see how it could be all that helpful. I let it be there. I'd have to say that by the time I think Kevin was charged with something, I
was charged in 1999, 2000. That's not long after this note, is it? It's in the next couple of years.
Yes, it's about 3 years later. Yes.
Just bear with me.
No, 4 years later.
So if you assume that Kevin Baker was charged in before December 1997, so shortly before that, and there was a committal hearing on the 2nd and 3rd of December 1997, and those trials in relation to 12 complainants, or those charges in relation to 12 complainants, some of those charges proceeded to trial from 1998 through to 2000. Did you think that it would have been appropriate and expedient to refer that information on to the police?
If I had remembered it at that stage, yes, I probably would have, I think.
You were at least aware that Mr. Baker was being investigated at the time you made this note, weren't you?
That was my understanding, yes.
Because you actually say that, that I've reason to believe one or more boys have raised complaints against Kevin Baker and that the police are investigating. So why did you not pass that information on to the police? Or at least the name of Sister Cordelia as someone who might assist?
And she wasn't going to be very much assistance. But yes, look, I'd agree now. It might have been helpful if I had passed it on. At the time, I judged it as unlikely to be very helpful. But yes, I certainly wasn't concealing it.
Mr. Loch, wasn't it for the police to decide?
I think that would have been better, yes.
It was for the police to decide whether that information was relevant or not. Do you
Yes.
agree with that? And it is not for you as a sister within your congregation to make a decision at an early stage as to the truthfulness of allegations, is it?
I will agree with that.
And it is not for you to make that decision to condition how you respond to the allegations, is it?
This wasn't about the truthfulness. It was about whether or not Cordelia would be able to actually help them in any way.
Sure, but if we go back, do you accept that it is not for you, as the person who receives a complaint or information about a complaint, to decide, do you accept that it is not for you, as the person who receives a complaint? Similarly, if you receive information relevant to a police investigation, do you accept it is not for you to make a determination whether or not it is relevant?
I'll agree with that.
And this shows an error of judgment on your part. Do you agree with that?
Yes,
And whether or not it is relevant.
I'll agree with that.
And this shows an error where you placed a focus on looking at whether the allegation was in fact truthful or not.
It wasn't about truthful. It was about whether she would be able to help them or not.
But it's part and
Cordelia
parcel,
was a very truthful person.
but it's also part and parcel of the same line of thinking, isn't it? You're making a determination on the truthfulness, the relevance of materials, when in fact, can I suggest, the appropriate response is simply to acknowledge the information or pass on the information.
I'll acknowledge that.
Please, I'm about to
About
change.
to change topics, so we'll take the mid-morning break now for 20 minutes.
Silence, we'll stand.